FBI agent Wesley returned to FBI headquarters in Dallas. As he approached his office, another agent told him that the man named Fenton was waiting inside. He claimed to have crucial information about the God's Hand serial killer, but refused to speak to anyone except Wesley, who happened to be leading the investigation.
The agent in charge of the God's Hand said he had some important info on it.
Wesley stepped into his office and immediately noticed Fenton holding a photo frame, the one of him and his mother. Without hesitation, he took it back, calmly reminding the visitor not to touch things on his desk.
Sorry about that. Guess I've been in here a while.
Wesley asked what he wants. Fenton tells him he knew who the killer was. Wesley raised an eyebrow. He'd heard this sort of thing before. In his experience, people didn't just stroll into the FBI with the name of a serial murderer.
In the office and tells you who the killer is, it just doesn't happen that way.
According to Fenton, the killer was his own younger brother, Adam. The night before, Adam had called in a disturbed state, claiming that demons were taking over the world. He asked Fenton to take his body to a place he called the Rose Garden, then hung up.
Adam.
Remember, you promised!
What followed was even more disturbing. Adam calmly took a drink, picked up a gun, and ended his life. Fenton, bound by a promise he made long ago, buried the body in Eden Garden himself. Wesley is confused about how that is related to him, and Fenton once again tells him Adam is the God's Hand killer.
He's the one you're looking for.
He tell you that?
Wesley stood up without a word, left the office, and made his way to a nearby phone. He contacted the local sheriff's office, hoping for some clarity. A receptionist answered. Wesley asked if they were familiar with Fenton. They were. In fact, she told him that Fenton had recently stolen an ambulance and his brother's corpse.
Stole an ambulance and his brother's body, too.
Wesley returned to the office. He started to press Fenton for more information, but was interrupted when Fenton pointed to the framed photo again, asking about the woman in it. Wesley replied that it was his mother.
Yeah, it is.
I knew it. You got the same eyes.
Fenton then steered the conversation back to the story, finally beginning from the start. He said it all began back in 1979, when he and Adam were just boys.
I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Where?
They lived behind the Rose Garden. Their mother had died giving birth to Adam, and Fenton had looked after him ever since. Their father worked as a mechanic. They live peacefully.
I sure love peace.
You must. You better be careful, though.
One night, their father woke them abruptly, his expression serious. He said he'd received a message from God, a warning that the end was coming. According to him, they had been chosen to destroy demons living among regular people. An angel had supposedly delivered this revelation and called them God's Hand.
Called us God's hands.
So we're like superheroes?
That's right.
Fenton didn't know what to think. His father's words didn't make any sense, and there was no proof.
It was too messed up to understand or even acknowledge.
The next morning, life seemed normal again. Their father was calm and even drove them to school. But just as the boys got out of the car, he warned them not to talk about what happened the night before.
And remember not telling anyone what I told you last night.
We won't, Dad. Bye.
Fenton continued. One day, his father claimed that holy weapons had been revealed to him. He said a beam of light had pointed him toward a decaying barn. Inside, he found a double-edged axe with the word Otis carved on it, along with a pair of gloves. Not long after, he returned home excited, revealing a short steel pipe wrapped in cloth. Another item he believed was sent from above. Eventually, their father told them that an angel would reveal a list of 7 demons who needed to be eliminated. Not long after, while Fenton was in the kitchen doing dishes, his father brought up the mission again. He admitted that the story sounded unbelievable, but claimed it was real, and even showed Fenton the first name from the list, one that had apparently come to him at work. Fenton, growing increasingly uneasy, thought about going to the police to stop this before it escalated, but backed out. Then one night, his father came home late. Curious, Fenton peered through a window and saw something horrifying. His father was carrying what looked like a body, wrapped tightly in cloth. Fenton, unable to shake off what he'd seen through the window, stepped outside and circled to the back of the house. There, he spotted his father fumbling with the lock on the shed. Nearby, a woman lay on the ground, her wrists and ankles bound, her mouth sealed with tape. Once the door creaked open, their father lifted the woman and carried her inside. He called for the boys, declaring that she wasn't a person at all. She was a demon.
Who is that?
That's a demon, son.
Fenton tried to reason with him, urging him to stop. But his father was unmoved, insisting he was simply doing what God commanded.
And his will must be served.
Inside the shed, the father moved toward the woman slowly. He reached out and placed a hand on her, and she cried out instantly, as though in pain. He pulled away, only to touch her again. This time, something changed in his expression. His face twisted with fear, as if he'd witnessed something he couldn't explain. Then, without a word, he picked up the axe and ended her life. Later that night, they returned to the rose garden to bury what remained. As they stood over the fresh grave, the father warned Fenton not to feel sorrow. She wasn't human, he said, just another demon in disguise.
I destroyed her. She was a demon.
Fenton, horrified, threatened to go to the authorities if it ever happened again. But his father responded with a chilling warning. If he did, more people would die.
Answer me, Fenton. Do you understand?
Back in the present, Fenton told Agent Wesley that the victims were all buried in the rose garden. Wesley, still skeptical, asked why he hadn't mentioned that sooner. Fenton replied simply, he wouldn't have believed him anyway. Wesley placed Fenton in handcuffs and put him in the back seat of his car. They drove off toward the rose garden. During the drive, Fenton brought up the photograph again, the one on Wesley's desk of him and his mother. He asked why the agent kept it there. Wesley answered quietly. His mother had been murdered not long after that photo was taken. Fenton then described a day when he and Adam returned home to find a white van parked outside. Their father told Fenton they had to cancel a planned sleepover.
We got some work to do in the morning.
That night, they followed the next name on the list, an older, bald man who parked his car outside a store and went inside. The father instructed Fenton to stick to the plan, but Fenton hesitated. It was the middle of the day, and too many people were around.
It's broad daylight.
I told you, God will blind them for us.
Adam offered to take his place, but their father insisted that it was Fenton's responsibility this time. He reassured them that God would provide the way. When the old man emerged from the store and headed toward his car, Fenton pretended to be searching under the vehicle, calling for a lost dog. The man bent down to help, but as he crouched, the father struck him hard on the back of the head with a metal pipe. Later, the man woke up bound to a chair, tape over his mouth. Their father placed a hand on him and reacted just as he had before, like he'd witnessed something horrifying beneath the surface. Then he picked up the axe and killed him. Fenton was tasked with digging the grave. That night, once their father was gone, Fenton tried to convince Adam to run away with him, but Adam refused. He said he believed everything.
It's all lies, Adam. No, it's not. I see it when he touches him.
When Fenton persisted, Adam ran off. The next day, their father gave Fenton another task. He was to dig a large square pit in the ground. It needed to be 10 feet deep and 15 feet across on all sides.
Because I'm your father and you'll do what I tell you. You understand?
Fenton started digging the hole his father had ordered. Adam tried to make him accept their mission, but Fenton refused to.
Dad said...
I don't care what Dad said. He might be able to make me dig this stupid hole.
His hands soon blistered, skin splitting open with every day that passed. He refused to wear the gloves offered by his father. On the 6th day, battered and bleeding, he finally finished the hole.
Well, you finished it all right.
What followed was worse. The father, with the boy's help, built a cellar inside the pit. When they were done, they buried it under a layer of dirt and moved the shed to sit directly above it. It didn't take long before their father brought another so-called demon. This time he called Fenton out specifically, handed him the axe, and pointed to the man lying on the cellar floor. But Fenton had reached his breaking point. He couldn't do it. Instead, he fled the property. He ran straight to the local sheriff's office and told him everything. He spoke about the killings, the supposed demons, and the graveyard in the rose garden. The sheriff didn't buy it. He chalked it up to youthful rebellion or delusion. Still, he agreed to follow Fenton home and talk to the father.
Sorry to wake you, but your boy here seems to have a problem.
When they arrived, the father welcomed the sheriff politely. The two men spoke and they went to the shed, but the floor looked like nothing more than packed dirt. Fenton pleaded with the sheriff to check the rose garden instead, insisting the evidence was there. But the sheriff had seen enough and turned to leave.
Please!
That's when everything spiraled. As the sheriff descended the cellar stairs, he suddenly collapsed. The father appeared behind him, looking distraught. With a heavy voice, he said a prayer for the sheriff's soul, then killed him with the axe. Later, as Fenton dug another grave, his father stood over him, saying that this had been the first time he'd taken a real life. Fenton objected, reminding him of all the previous victims, but the father refused to see it that way. Those were demons, he claimed. The sheriff had been the first man, and his death was the fault of Fenton's betrayal.
You're crazy!
Dad, no!
After they buried the sheriff, the father ordered Fenton into the cellar. Fenton begged for another chance and promised to stay silent, but his father no longer believed him. He forced Fenton down and locked the trapdoor.
Please, Dad, no, please!
A week passed. The father opened the door and asked if Fenton had heard God's voice yet. Fenton, weak and pale, replied that there was no God. The door slammed shut again. More days passed and Fenton finally saw God. When the father finally opened the cellar again, he found Fenton barely responsive. He moistened his son's lips, relieved to find him still breathing. Even more surprising, Fenton now claimed he had seen God.
So did God tell you about the demons?
Sometime after, the father decided Fenton was ready. Their next target lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Fenton went along. They approached the house and knocked. A man opened the door. The father told him they needed help and said something about a tire iron. The man agreed and led them around back to find the tool. As the father and his sons followed their latest target to the backyard, something unexpected happened. Fenton accidentally backed into a hammer, knocking it to the ground with a sharp clatter. Reacting fast, the man swung his tire iron into the father's gut, knocking him back. But before he could escape, Fenton grabbed a wrench and hurled it at him.
Grab his legs.
Together, they dragged the body to the cellar. Inside, the father knelt and placed his hand on the man, searching for the sins he believed God would reveal. Then he gave Fulton the command to finish the job. Fenton stood still, staring at the man. Then, without warning, he turned the axe on his father, striking him directly in the chest. Adam cried out in horror as their father collapsed. In his final moments, the father whispered something into Adam's ear. Then he was gone. Fenton rushed to help the man they'd brought in. He pulled the tape off the victim's mouth, trying to free him from the ropes. But before he could finish, Adam came charging in with the axe and brought it down. Back in the present, Fenton, still guiding Agent Wesley through overgrown paths, told him to stop the car. He led the agent through thick vegetation, continuing his story. In a memory, Fenton reminded his younger brother to keep a promise. If anything ever happened to him, he wanted to be buried in the rose garden.
Promise to God I'll bury you here.
This detail confused Wesley. It contradicted what Fenton had said earlier, that his brother had called just the night before asking to be buried. Wesley pointed out the inconsistency. That's when Fenton dropped the act. He wasn't Fenton at all. He was Adam.
If the man standing in front of you is Adam Meeks,
He also reveals that he never killed any human. Fenton was the killer. He then tells Wesley to follow him so that he can show him the bodies. The real Fenton had died years ago, and Adam had been the one to kill him, continuing their father's mission.
Jesus Christ, you really do believe all this stuff?
He explained that ever since he was a child, he could see what their father saw, the evil inside people. Wesley, stunned, pulled his gun and accused Adam of being a murderer. But Adam didn't flinch. Instead, he reveals he knows Wesley had murdered his own mother.
that's not gonna bring your mother back, is it?
The accusation shook Wesley to his core. He lunged at Adam, but as soon as they touched, something happened. Wesley saw it, the memory he had buried. Adam carried Wesley's limp body to a grave he dug earlier, and using the axe, he completed the task. In the aftermath, the police start looking for Wesley. When they reviewed the security footage, nothing made sense. The video was blurry, distorted, almost like it didn't want to reveal what really happened.
It's gotta be a fake name. Sounds fake.
They finally raid Adam's house and see Wesley's name erased. Then they find Wesley's badge covered in blood in the basement.
Not him.
The FBI agent from earlier arrived in town to investigate Wesley's disappearance. When he meets the town sheriff, it is Adam. He was there to ask questions about his brother Fenton. After their conversation, Adam reassures him he will tell him if he hears anything about his brother. After the agent left, Adam's wife followed, asking if everything was okay, and he reassured her. Did this story spook you out? Let us know in the comments below. For more horror movie recaps, subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next one. Fear awaits you.